left behind by gold.
Hey guys, Amateur Applejack here with, as you can obviously tell, a brand new microphone. Actually, not brand new. It's a reused microphone.
Now, I did get exclusive permission to make money off of both the story by Gold and the picture by Dirk Wilkley Tune this time. I've been spelling it wrong. Now, I'm also probably going to be making money off of this, which is probably going to be like maybe 5 cents. So I can monetize, as you might know if you actually have a YouTube channel and make YouTube videos. I can also now upload over 15 minutes, which is why I'm not getting straight to the story. And as we all know, the story is Left Behind by Gold, Chapter 4, The Search Begins, edited by Clavier. Spitfire and Applejack exchanged nervous glances. They had told Twilight everything they knew about Rainbow Dash's disappearance, but from the look on Twilight's face, the information that they had provided was not sufficient. Applejack had admitted the kiss, of course, but excluding that, she told Twilight everything she knew. Twilight, as always, needed more details. Is there anywhere she would go if she was upset? Someplace you haven't checked, Spitfire? I've checked all of Rainbow Dash's usual haunts, and I've talked to all of her friends. No pony has seen her. Applejack, when did Rainbow Dash leave your barn? Be as precise as possible, please. Applejack thought, but was still pretty shaken. I don't remember exactly. This is important, AJ, snapped Twilight. Think. Guess round 3:15? The more she thought about it, the more confident she was. Yeah, I left the market around 2:45, and it probably took us about maybe 20 minutes to get home, and then, the argument happened. So maybe 3:10? Which way was she headed? Applejack was aggravated at Twilight's making her repeat herself. Towards the mountains! Twilight looked irritated. I know that, Applejack. Exactly. Let me think. She could hardly remember anything from that day but the kiss, and Twilight was putting too much pressure on her. It was the barn door faces due east, and she flew off sort of left out the door. How far left? Applejack thought. Hard. She pointed at right hoof. This is east, she said, now lifting her left hoof to make an angle with her two legs. This is the way she flew. Totally not country. What friend's hooves? About 15 degrees. And how fast was she flying? About as fast as I've ever seen her, I'd reckon. Twilight, what does this? Twilight shushed her. Just looking deep in thought. Using her magic, she lifted a map of Equestria with markings on it and held it magically in the air between them. It was covered in magical notation that Al could understand and had a circle around part of the mountain range. Twilight gestured at the circle. This is roughly where the magical event happened, and it happened almost at exactly 4 o'clock. It's hard to triangulate perfectly, but I can confirm that if there is a black dragon, it is around here. A few simple mathematical tools magically floated in the air to aid her in her thinking. A pen, a drawing compass, a protractor, and a ruler. Spitfire, what's Rainbow Dash's average wing power over long distances? There was no hesitation from Spitfire. She could answer that question for any of the Wonderbolts. About 18. The tools made their way onto the map. Here's your barn, Applejack. She dotted it with a pen. Now, let's assume, explained Twilight, from Applejack's observation that she started at a much higher wing power, but probably could not hold it for 50 minutes. I'll say she was traveling at an average of 20 wing power. Assuming that, I can roughly calculate how far she could have gone in the amount of time before the event. She did a few rough calculations in her head, measured out the distance Rainbow Dash could have flown, and made a circle with the drawing compass around Applejack's barn, showing the whole area she could have flown in that time. Applejack felt her heart sink as the compass passed right through the circle, marking the black dragon's domain. Using the pen and the ruler, she drew a line due east from the barn. She was traveling approximately 15 degrees north due east. She measured out this angle with the protractor and drew another line. Applejack's heart sank again as Twilight drew another line right through the circle on the map. Spitfire and Applejack stared at each other. They could feel how bad the situation was, but their minds wouldn't accept it. They needed to hear it from her. Twilight was in a pensive silence, worried by the evidence in front of her. She didn't take her eyes off the map. When she finally opened her mouth, she spoke very softly and very carefully. By my rough calculations, if she maintained 20 wing power and flew for 50 minutes 15 degrees north of due east without turning, she would be right on the event when it happened. She looked Applejack in the eyes. She would be right of the dragon when it awoke. Applejack felt this hit her. It was all the evidence she needed. We have to go. Wait, Applejack, said Twilight. My calculations were very rough. If going 10 degrees more north or south, she would be clear of the area. But she wasn't. Applejack felt her voice rising. And what if she didn't fly straight? Or 15 degrees at 15 instead of 20? Applejack, this isn't enough evidence to assume she's in danger. What? She couldn't figure out what Twilight didn't understand. Oh, so y'all think that nobody has seen her for a whole day. She makes practice for the Wonderbolts, which she never has before. She flies over the mountains where you reasonably sure she puts herself right over huge magical events, and you think she's what, napping on a cloud somewhere? Just think that we should make sure that she's actually in danger before we walk into the jaws of a black dragon. Twilight's voice was raised too. Well, you know what I think? Spat Applejack. I think if Rainbow Dash were in our shoes, and even a tiny bit sure that one of us was in danger, she'd already be halfway there by now. Twilight sighed, irritated. Her voice dropped, and she spoke very seriously. Even if she is there, we couldn't start searching for her until morning anyway. We only have a few hours left of daylight, and more importantly, we aren't ready to face a black dragon. All we'd do if we went out tonight is get ourselves killed. Fine, said the country pony, walking over to the map. You can start looking tomorrow. I'm heading out tonight. She grabbed the map with her teeth, but immediately felt it magically pulled out. Absolutely not, barked Twilight, her horn glowing. You'll get yourself killed. Besides, what do you think you can do against a dragon? Buck it to death? Applejack was hurt, but her recent thoughts of insignificance drawn to the surface by Twilight's dispassionate scorn. Twilight probably didn't mean for it to sting as much as it had, but suddenly Applejack had enough of her magician fine. Said Applejack under her breath, heading out the door. Don't go out tonight, Applejack, ordered Twilight, her angry eyes locked on Applejack. Don't go looking for her until we're ready. Applejack, standing in the doorframe, looked her friend in the eyes and lied through her teeth. I won't, Twilight. I promise. She slammed the door behind her with a strong...
Rainbow Dash awoke with a groan. For a few moments she had wondered where she was and why she had been sleeping on the cold ground and not a cloud. Her memories suddenly flooded back to her, getting around the dark cave. She could hardly see a few feet in front of her. Where was he? Ah, good, the deep voice echoed in the cave. You're awake. A purple eye suddenly appeared. She realized that his massive form was barely 10 feet in front of her. His black scales were the perfect camouflage for the dark cave. Though she felt fearful, she met his eyes strongly, sitting tall and proud. This caused him to laugh coldly again. Good, good. You have a lot of spunk, little pony. I like that. He spoke with a slow, detached precision. She just stared into the two floating purple eyes in the dark. Well, go on, he said. Ask me. Ask me the question on your mind. She worried her voice would waver, but it had its usual strength. How come you haven't eaten me yet? I assume that's why you dragged me. She cocked a smile, wanting to seem confident and unconcerned. I thought you would have at least plucked my feathers. He chuckled darkly. You don't know much about dragons, do you? Well, in the old ponytails, you were always the bad guys, so I'm willing to bet you're all jerks. There's a flicker in his eyes. Black dragons aren't like many other animals. We don't eat meat or vegetables, nor do we eat gems like other dragons. We are similar to changeling, who feed off affection, but instead we feed off magic. Magic? Asked Rainbow Dash curiously. Yes, I feed on the magic energies found in Equestria. Magic exists anywhere there is life, some places more than others. For example, that tree outside only has a little magic stored up, but you, my lovely little Pegasus, are quite a feast. The two eyes suddenly came in very close to her. She could make out the form of his massive head. I do not need to put you in my mouth and chew like a barbarian. I can feed off the energy of everything in my vicinity. Sure, the process is slower, but I show you the result is about... His white teeth flashed in the dark. For the food, anyway. What are you saying? She asked, her heart pounding. I hadn't eaten you yet, didn't you? There was laughter in his voice. I'm giving you the answer. I've already started. Rainbow Dash suddenly became how weak she felt. How she could barely lift her legs. How her wings seemed to be made of paper. Even sitting upright like this was a challenge. She could hear her heart beat even faster. She thought that because she was still alive, there was hope that he wouldn't eat her. But the truth was, she could feel herself being digested just by looking into his eyes. Still, she maintained her unconcerned look. Well, I hope I'm not too spicy for you. What's your name? She asked flippantly.
"Oh, please," he sighed, the eyes floating back up into the darkness. "Is that your plan? Trying to get me to warm up to you?" "I'm not really the planning type. I was just curious." "My name is of no concern to you," he replied simply. Her body felt like it was going to collapse, but her mind refused to. "So if you can just suck on a few trees for magic, why did you cap your ponies?" This time she chuckled. "Guess you guys really are jerks, huh?" Suddenly his eyes were furious, and his enormous claws came out of the darkness around her body. In her weak state, she could do nothing but allow it to happen. "Careful, little pony." His anger caused his fire to flare up in the back of his mouth as he talked. In the cave, and she realized to her horror that the cave wall at her back was actually his tail. His body completely surrounded her. "For thousands of years, when I was a young dragon, I tried to live in harmony with my environment. I carefully drained the magic out of creatures without killing them." He squeezed. "But after decades of armored ponies coming to my cave trying to kill me, after all those years of telling me that I was the villain, and they who came into my home to murder me, the heroes, well, I guess I finally decided to fill the role cast." His grip relaxed. She could not help looking weak, falling to the ground wheezing. "And there's another one, a more functional one." The laughter was back in his eyes. "Once you capture one pony, I found more show up." This idea hadn't occurred to Rainbow Dash, and it filled her with dread. She felt her stomach drop. They would send a rescue team, wouldn't they? He chuckled. "Finally, we dropped the cocky facade." "Who would come looking for me?" she bluffed. "I have no friends, no family, no pony will even know I'm missing for weeks." He shook his head. "Then why did you look so crestfallen when I mentioned other ponies?" "No, I'm willing to bet you have lots of little pony friends." "They have no idea where I am," she said, realizing that this had to be true. She'd filled with joy my friends would not have to face the dragon, and dread knowing that they would not have to face him alone. "They won't find me." "If there's any magician in Equestria worth a damn, they'll know where I am," he said. "But magicians don't run into battles they cannot win. No, usually the first visitor will be someone who's very close to you, someone who's very near to your heart, some pony who would come as soon as they realized you were in danger, and then I'll have 2 little ponies to feed on." Rainbow Dash's anger flared as her thoughts turned to Applejack, who she knew would not hesitate to try to save her. Despite the kiss, she would come. Of that Rainbow Dash had no doubt. "You monster," she weakly spat. He laughed. "You have no idea how many times I've heard that line." She tried to stand up, but found herself collapsed on the cave floor again. She felt dizzy, and she knew she was going to slip out of consciousness again. "Sleep, little pony," he said with a sneer she could barely see. "I'll make sure you're awake when our first visitor gets here." She wanted to sigh, but no.
She knew that she had to do something, and she had to get out before she could stop Applejack, so she could stop Applejack. If Applejack got hurt trying to save her, Rainbow Dash would never forgive herself. She almost laughed at how confident she was that Applejack would come to save her. She felt her heart ache. If they got it, would things ever be the same between them? Or had the kiss changed everything? Right before she went under, her mind filled herself with Applejack. Her eyes, her face, her hair, her crooked smile, her kindness, her dependability, and her loyalty. The last thing she thought of before the darkness overwhelmed her was the taste of apples. The dragon thought it was odd that the little pony passed out with a smile on her face. The night air was getting colder. Applejack's saddlebag packed only with the essentials, made her way further into the mountain range. She remembered exactly the spot marked on Twilight's map. She was making her fastest pace, but moving up the mountain range was certainly harder than flying over it. She hoped that Rainbow Dash was all right. She didn't know what she would do without Rainbow Dash. Applejack's mind froze for a second as she thought of the worst, wondering if she was already too late. She shook off that thought. Can't think like that, Applejack," she whispered, comforting herself. "She'll be fine. Rainbow's a fighter. Needs something more than a little old black dragon to take her down." With mountains looming over her, she fearlessly headed towards the black dragon's domain, unaware of the trap set for her. Alright guys, that was chapter 4, The Search Begins. And as you guys may have noticed immediately, 2 things. 1, there might be an ad in the video. Amazing, right? I know. 2, you might also know that I'm either sounding in my normal voice, but a lot better quality, or the mic screwed up and I'm sounding really, really bad.
one of the two going to happen no matter what. So, thanks for watching, and guess what? We're over 15 minutes now. Woo! Party, party. I got soda. I'm going to drink it. So, thank you for watching. Amateur Applejack out. Left behind by gold.